story of Hansel and Gretel.
Once upon a time there lived a very poor woodcutter in a tiny cottage in the forest with his 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. The children's wicked stepmother often mistreated them and was forever nagging the woodcutter. "There isn't enough food in the house for all of us. There are too many mouths to feed. The only thing we can do is get rid of the children," she declared, and she kept on trying to persuade her husband to abandon Hansel and Gretel for good. One evening Hansel and Gretel overheard their parents from their bedroom. "Take them deep into the forest, so far that they can never find their way back. Maybe someone will take pity on them and give them a home," their stepmother snarled. Gretel began to cry. "Don't worry, if they do leave us in the forest, we'll find our way home," whispered Hansel, comforting his sister. That night, Hansel quietly snuck out of the cottage and filled his pockets with little white pebbles before going back to bed. All night long, the woodcutter's wife harped on and on at her husband till at dawn he sadly led Hansel and Gretel away into the forest. But as they went into the depths of the trees, clever Hansel dropped a little white pebble here and there on the grassy green ground. Having stopped to set up a campfire, the 2 children found they really were alone. The woodcutter had plucked up enough courage to desert them and had not returned. As night fell, Gretel began to sob bitterly. Hansel felt scared too, but he had to try and hide his feelings and comfort his sister. "Don't cry, trust me. I swear I'll take you home even if Father doesn't come back for us." Luckily, the moon was full that night, and Hansel waited till its cold light filtered through the trees. "Now give me your hand," he said. "We'll get home safely, you'll see." The tiny white pebbles gleamed in the moonlight, and the children found their way home. They crept through a half-open window without waking their parents. Cold, tired, but thankful to be home again, they slipped into bed. The next day, when their stepmother discovered that Hansel and Gretel had returned, she went into a rage. Stifling her anger in front of the children, she scolded her husband for failing to carry out her orders. The weak woodcutter protested, torn as he was between shame and fear of disobeying his cruel wife. The wicked stepmother decided to punish Hansel and Gretel and fed them nothing but a sip of water and some stale bread for dinner. All night, husband and wife quarrelled, and when dawn came, the woodcutter led the children out into the forest once again. Hansel, however, had not eaten his bread, and as he walked through the trees he left a trail of crumbs behind him to mark the way. But the little boy had forgotten about the hungry birds that lived in the forest. When they saw him, they flew along behind and in no time at all had eaten all the crumbs. Once again the woodcutter made a half-hearted excuse and left his 2 children by themselves. "I've left a trail like last time," Hansel whispered to Gretel consolingly. But when night fell, they saw to their horror that all the crumbs had gone. "I'm frightened," wept Gretel bitterly. "I'm cold and hungry and I want to go home." "Don't be afraid, I'm here to look after you." Hansel tried to encourage his sister, but he too shivered when he glimpsed frightening shadows and evil eyes around them in the darkness. When dawn broke, they started to wander about the forest, seeking a path, but all hope soon faded. They were well and truly lost. On they walked and walked, till suddenly they came upon a strange cottage made entirely from confectionery in the middle of a glade. "This is gingerbread," gasped Hansel as he broke a chunk from the wall. "And this is icing," exclaimed Gretel, putting another piece of wall in her mouth. Starving but delighted, the children began to eat all the sweet treats they could get their hands on. "Isn't this delicious?" said Gretel with her mouth full. She had never tasted anything so nice. "We'll stay here," Hansel declared, munching on a giant sweet. They were just about to try a piece of the biscuit door when it quietly swung open. "Well, well," said an old woman, peering out with a crafty look. "And haven't you children a sweet tooth?" Come in, you've nothing to fear," went the old woman. Unluckily for Hansel and Gretel, however, the delicious cottage belonged to a wicked old witch, and now they were trapped. "You're nothing but skin and bones," said the witch, locking Hansel into a cage. "I shall fatten you up and eat you." "You can do the housework," she told Gretel grimly. "Then I'll make a meal of you too." As luck would have it, the witch had very bad eyesight, and when Gretel smeared butter on her glasses, she could see even less. "Let me feel your finger," said the witch to Hansel every day to check if he was getting any fatter. Now, Gretel had brought her brother a chicken bone, and when the witch went to touch his finger, Hansel held out the bone. "You're still much too thin," she complained. "When will you become plump?" One day, the witch grew tired of waiting. "Light the oven," she told Gretel. "We're going to have a tasty roasted boy today." A little later, hungry and impatient, she went on, "Run and see if the oven is hot enough." Gretel returned whimpering, "I can't tell if it's hot enough or not." Angrily, the witch screamed at the little girl, "Useless child! All right, I'll see for myself." But when the witch bent down to peer inside the oven and check the heat, Gretel gave her a tremendous push, and the witch came to a fit and proper end. Hansel and Gretel stayed for several days to eat some more of the house, till they discovered amongst the witch's belongings a huge chocolate egg. Inside lay a treasure chest filled with gold coins. "The witch is now burnt to a cinder," said Hansel, "so we'll take this treasure with us." They set off into the forest to search for their way home. This time luck was with them, and on the second day they saw their father come out of the house towards them weeping. "Your stepmother left me and said she was never coming back. Come home with me now, my dear children." "Promise you'll never ever desert us again," said Gretel, throwing her arms around her father's neck. "I promise," wept the woodcutter, who was truly sorry for what he had done. Hansel opened the treasure chest. "Look, father, we're rich now. You'll never have to chop wood again." And they all lived happily together ever after. The end.